Doctorate from the University of Kansas. Prior to coming to IAIA, Dr. Martin was the Associate Head of American Indian Studies Program at the University of Arizona, served as the president for 4 tribal colleges, Southwestern Indian Polytechnic Institute, Haskell Indian Nations University, Tonanatam Community College, and now the Institute of American Indian Arts. Please join me in welcoming President Dr. Martin.
Thank you, David Sarah, for that introduction. I was talking with David Sarah before, and I told him he could just say, they could just say the 4 or the 3 other colleges, because Tonanatam is a challenge for some people. But he was a master at Tonanatam, but he's got to work on SIPI. But yeah, all you have to say is SIPI for that one. But anyway, it's a pleasure to welcome our students and faculty and staff and Board of Trustees, special guests, and others, our supporters, to the 22-23 Convocation ceremony. And this is how we set the tone for the semester. Not only do we welcome our students, but we talk about some of the things that are going to be occurring this year. And so it's a special occasion for us. And you're going to hear a great keynote from Cara Romero, one of our alums, in just a few minutes. But I want to start by asking the faculty and staff who assisted us in making sure that we get started in a good way, if they could come forward. We'd like to acknowledge them and also provide a gift to them. We'll start, if Dr. Jessie Ryker-Crawford could come forward, Earth Chippewa. Of course, Director of the MFA in Cultural Administration. Mr. Alvin Sandoval, Diné, Student Services Transportation. Paul Quintana, Cochiti Pueblo, in the Land Grant Department. And Delight Talawepi, Assistant to the Academic Dean. If you could come forward. And David Sarah is going to help me. It's got our 60/50 pin logo on it. Do you have Delight working on PARs? Yeah, this guy keeps his staff working. But tell Delight we really appreciated her and the others that provided the blessing for us in the 4 directions. It's so important to start not only a gathering, but an academic year in a good way, and we certainly did it with the blessings in the 4 directions. Again, it's a pleasure to welcome our first-year students. And if you're a first-year student, could you please rise and let's see our first-year students. Thank you for joining us. We all know we're coming out of a pandemic, and one of the I think consequences of the pandemic has been across the nation, first-year students, there's been a steep decline in those, but we're seeing our students returning for that first year, which is so important, and I really want to congratulate and commend you for that. We also have transfer students with us. If you transferred from another institution, please rise, and we want to welcome you. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. I know we've had a few that may have stopped out, but they are returning. Do we have any readmits in the audience today? They're probably studying somewhere, getting reoriented to college life. What about returning students? Let's see. Don't be shy. Great. Thank you for perhaps taking the summer off and rejoining us. We really appreciate it. And now, do we have any graduating students in December that have joined us this morning? All right. Well, we'll certainly look forward to your final semester here, and I know it will go well. And of course, the friends and supporters that are with us as well, the Board of Trustees, I'm going to introduce Beverly Morris in a few minutes. But the school year 22-23, especially 2022, is a very special year for us. We're celebrating not only the beginning of our academic year, but this happens to be a milestone year for us and our museum, the college and the museum. We're celebrating the 50 anniversaries, 60 for the college and 50 for the Museum of Contemporary Native Arts. So we're commemorating 6 historic decades of success for IAIA and 50 years for MOCNA, the Museum of Contemporary Native Arts. And of course, we're celebrating 60 years as the birthplace of contemporary indigenous arts for the college, 60 years of empowering creativity for the college and leadership in indigenous arts and cultures, 60 years of cultivating leaders who are decolonizing arts and educational institutions, and of course 60 years. What's our theme for the 60-50? Does anybody know what that is? Making history, yes. Thank you, Danielle. And all of you in this room have made history or will make history, who has joined us here in the Institute of American Indian Arts and part of our community. And when we interview people, alums or current students, what they appreciate most about the Institute of American Indian Arts is a sense of community. And certainly we want to continue that with our new students and all of our students joining us for this semester. We want you to feel at home and a part of this community, and it will help you to be successful as well. So our responsibility while you're here, and I'm sure you've heard this during orientation and from your faculty and professors, your staff, is to ensure that you remain safe and have the necessary support and opportunities to be successful. That's why we're still requiring students living in the residence center to be fully vaccinated. We're asking you to test whenever you have COVID-related symptoms. We're asking you to wear a mask when in congested indoor areas, and that's why we're in this building, so you could spread out. I know some of our staff tried to get in the bleachers, but you just maintain social distancing if that's what you want. Wear a mask. We want to respect all of that, and we want to keep our community safe. But always, for students, and I know you've heard this in orientation and from your professors and staff, we have a talented, creative, and committed faculty and staff who are dedicated to the mission of the college. So reach out to them for the support you need and the assistance. Could the faculty and staff in the audience please rise, and we want to thank you. Thank you very much. I'm really pleased to see Steve Wall in the audience. Thank you, Steve, for joining us. He retired a few years ago, but we're blessed that he's continuing as an adjunct professor, and we really appreciate his commitment to the college as well. You know, you met David, Sarah, and are the other ASG officers in the audience? If you could please rise, and thank you for your willingness to step forward in leadership roles. It's so important for the college, and I invite other students to support this ASG, to get involved, become an officer if they need it, or a representative. It's so important to have the student voice. And as you know, we have shared governance here, and so all policies and procedures go through our committee system, and for student life, as an example, and the Finance Administration Committee, all those impact students. And so we have 2 seats on every committee, and we invite you to reach out to the ASG. They can't do it all. Their priority remains to work in pursuit of their degree or certificate or whatever it might be. But they need help, they need assistance, and various studies on retention show year after year that if you're more engaged in the community, that's correlated with student retention, student success. So please consider joining the ASG in their efforts to make sure that the voice of the students is very strong here. And of course, they have a seat on the Board of Trustees, and they represent you, so it's important for you to support them. And there are other clubs and organizations that we have on campus, so please, and if you don't find one that you like, start a club. We have a process for that. Student ASG will support you in that endeavor. As many of you may know, we have an updated strategic plan, and Plan 25 was approved by the Board of Trustees in May. I want to thank Mary Beth Worley, the Director of Institutional Research, for her efforts in bringing people together through the Planning Committee, through surveys, focus groups, and with our stakeholders and our community. We had a lot of input. We think we have a document. Where is Mary Beth? There she is. Let's give her a round of applause. Thank you. So a lot of people had an opportunity for input, and we really appreciated that, and I think you'll see that reflected in the document. And if you haven't seen it yet, it's going to be in public areas, in classrooms and conference rooms across the campus, and they were being framed, and Lori said it's all set to go, the frames. And so you might see Mary Beth or somebody up there in the rooms putting up those posters or those frame posters with the strategic plan. But anyway, you'll see that the core values are very important, and I just wanted to highlight those for you for just a minute. And the theme of the strategic plan, one of the strategic directions, is student success. And we have 4 strategic directions, but I wanted to really spend a little bit of time on this one, which says, using an indigenous framework, IAIA will provide increased opportunities for our students to achieve their goals. So that's going to be the priority. That's going to lead us in allocation of resources and programming and going forward as we throughout this academic year. The core values are collaboration, again, working together for student success, excellence, upholding high standards for all of us, students, faculty, and staff, creativity, encouraging bold expressions in art and life, respect, fostering the appreciation of cultures, perspectives, and identities through diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. And that's a really important one in terms of continuing that sense of community. Integrity, expecting and honoring reciprocity, accountability, honesty, and responsibility to ourselves, to our community, and to the world. Leadership, and this is an important one too, cultivating leaders in indigenous arts and cultures. Stewardship, being effective stewards of the Institute of American Indian Arts, our resources to ensure sustainability. And also the last one is environment, protecting the earth and the environment. And you'll see one of our goals is to reduce our carbon footprint and moving toward alternative renewable resources. And we have a solar project, and it's taking us a while, but our goal is to complete that project as quickly as possible. Another strategic direction that I wanted to mention, build capacity for growth. And I want to applaud Dean Colon and he and his faculty for their efforts in planning. And I know that the Cinematic Arts and Technology is leading the development of a hybrid BFA in interactive arts and game design. The academic division is exploring the development of an interdisciplinary fashion design certificate. We're working to expand the Indigenous Liberal Studies program. We're exploring the development of a BFA in Native American Art History. This week, we received a check for $1.2 million. It's a legacy gift from one of our supporters to fund an endowed chair in Native American Art History. Yes. The gift required a $800,000 match, so I took that from Dean Felipe Colon's budget. No, I didn't. We used the Mackenzie Scott gift for that $800,000 match. We did that well over a year ago, so we had it there, and so we can begin moving forward with that endowed chair and BFA in Native Art History as soon as possible. And of course, we want to increase scholarship support. We've had increased giving for endowed scholarships, and that's so important. And we have the advancement teams here, and Suzette Sherman. We had a great event last week. We had a record amount that was donated in support of scholarships. That occurred because not only were we committed here, but our donors and supporters want to support scholarships and communicate to you that they care about your future and they care about educating the future artist in the coming years. I also want to take a moment to acknowledge our alumni. I know the goal of all of you in this room, the new students and returning, all of you, is to graduate and be an alumni of the Institute of American Indian Arts. And so I'd like the alumni to please stand. Let's give them a round of applause. We always like to thank you. Thank you very much. Our alumni are making history and fine arts, film, museums, scholarship, performing arts, and writing, and I am confident that our current students will make history as well. Wado, thank you. Now it's my pleasure to welcome Beverly Morris to the podium. She's an Aleut from Alaska and a board member of the Institute of American Indian Arts Board of Trustees. She's a former member of the IAIA Foundation. She's currently ex officio member. She's a major donor and is an alumna of the Institute of American Indian Arts. She is a producer, director, and owner of Chain Reaction Productions. She has been associated with the Institute of American Indian Arts since 1988 as a student, staff member, producer, and director. She was the director of the Disney Summer and TV Workshops. She received her Bachelor of Fine Arts from Stephen F. Austin State. Please join me in welcoming Beverly Morris.
Good morning, everybody. As Dr. Martin said, my name is Beverly Morris. I'm Anungan. I'm a member of the Cayalungan tribe of Unalaska, Alaska. And I have a long relationship with the Institute of American Indian Arts. I was taking museum studies courses, and along the way I was hired to work as the assistant to a director of a new film and television department, and pretty soon I was learning how to produce radio spots as well as TV programs, and launched my time as an independent documentary producer around Native American issues. So I want to welcome everybody. The young students who are here, welcome to Santa Fe, and returning students, welcome back. I hope you had a chance to visit the Indian Market downtown Santa Fe over the weekend. So much was going on. It was overwhelming almost, but delightful. Not only the art, there was film, there were readings, fashion show, music, and many of those people involved with that are graduates of the Institute of American Indian Arts. You'll see the photograph by Cara Romero, Making History. That's an impressive photograph just on an aesthetic level, but it represents each decade of graduates of the Institute of American Indian Arts. There's also a film called Making History that Ramona Emerson produced, she and her husband, Kelly Byers. They're both graduates of the Institute of American Indian Arts. And you'll have a chance to see that. I think the film will be streaming on the IAI websites at some place, at some time, if it's not already up. And you'll get a keen sense of the individuals who've come before you. I think, and I think the staff and faculty understand as well, that the new students and returning students are the next generation of tremendous artists, scholars, musicians, fashion designers who will come through the Institute of American Indian Arts doors. So welcome to the family. I look forward to getting to know the new student body. Thank you.
Thank you, Beverly, and I really appreciate her being here with us today. And of course, the Board of Trustees are really committed to the mission of IAIA as well. And anytime they have a meeting on campus, except when they go into executive session, it's public and open to everyone. And as I said earlier, David Sarah joins us for many of those meetings, but all of the ASG could join us, and any other students, faculty, and staff that would like to sit through a meeting. So there's important business that takes place. All right, now it's time for our keynote address. It's my pleasure to welcome Cara Romero, a member of the Chemehuevi Indian Tribe of California and an IAIA alumna. She received her BFA in Studio Arts with an emphasis in photography in 2005. Cara's photography involves a complex artistic process which communicates vivid stories of contemporary life among indigenous peoples. Her award-winning work is included in many public and private collections in the U.S. and internationally. Cara received the 2022 Indian Market IAIA Alumni Award at Indian Market, and that was for her photograph, The Zenith. And she was also awarded Best of Class in Painting, Drawing, Graphics, and Photography for her work, The Zenith. To commemorate, as Beverly said, our 65th anniversaries, Cara was commissioned to create a photograph that showcased 6 decades of esteemed, innovative artists, writers, filmmakers, performers, and leaders who are part of the history and vision of the college and the museum. The indelible photograph isn't just for this year or this decade, it's for the ages. It's a testament to how IAIA and MOCNA are making history. I observed the complexity of her artistic process as she was creating the iconic photograph, and it was amazing to see her work and just how complex it is. And it really captured the essence of our storied history. Please join me in welcoming Cara Romero.
Maikwe snook Cara Romero niega nu hagaro yo mak. I am so happy and honored to be here to see friendly faces in the audience. I am a very proud alumni of IAIA, and today I wanted to share with you my story, a little bit of my biography, in hopes that we can connect and that you will be inspired when you leave here to be also proud to be part of the family of IAIA, the faculty, the student body. We forever look out for each other. So my name is Cara Romero, and I am from the Chemehuevi Valley Indian Reservation. I was born in Inglewood, Redondo Beach, California in 1977. And in 1979, me and my family and my grandparents and aunts and uncles all moved back to our newly reorganized Chemehuevi Valley Indian Reservation, deep in the heart of the Mojave Desert, so off of the Colorado Plateau and into the Great Basin, the hot, hot desert, where on the California side of Lake Havasu, which was once the mighty Colorado River and has since been dammed up. So the Colorado River and Lake Havasu are in our backyard. We're known as some of the finest basket weavers in all of the Great Basin. We still participate in those activities annually where we gather the white willow along the river and work with the children and intergenerational cultural transmission on cleaning the devil's claw for our design work and on a 3-rod foundation. There are not many basket weavers left from our tribe, so it is my hope to return home as an older person and continue teaching and with that practice. All that to say it was a little bit of a different path to arrive and want to be a young Native photographer from my tribe. Our tribe is matriarchal. We have a lot of gender equity. Our creator is female. She is great ocean woman, and all of the land and all of the people are made from the body of woman. Our governance is often predominantly women. At Chemehuevi, all of that to say my grandmother was chairwoman of our tribe. We were always taught to have voice, to stand up, to be strong, to talk about what you believe in. In 1985, my parents split and I left the reservation and ended up in Houston, Texas, which was quite the culture shock. My mom is Anglo-German-Irish and my dad is Native, so when we left the reservation, I ended up in a majority-minority school district in Houston, where everybody was from somewhere. And during that experience, I think what I learned very early on is that people outside of the reservation really had no concept of contemporary Native life. Growing up in the 80s, we were absent from school, from education, from media, and when we did show up, it was always historic, bygone, stereotyped in Hollywood, and often pre-1900s. And all of that to say, I knew from really early on that I wanted to teach about contemporary Native issues. I wanted to go to school to learn how to create voice, to maybe write textbooks, do something, because what I found in my life was a very different lived experience, as many of us had, compared to what we were seeing around us, taught in public schools, in Hollywood, in mainstream media. We grew up with these great shoebox of photos of my grandparents and my grandmothers, boarding school era, of great uncles that were welterweight champions in Las Vegas. And I really wanted to tell that story. I always wanted to tell that story, and I started out at the University of Houston in cultural anthropology. It was really wanting to write textbooks about contemporary Chemehuevi people, about Southern Paiutes, about everything that I thought was missing, everything that I had wanted to learn in elementary school and junior high. And as fate would have it, in 1998, I ended up in a black and white film class at the University of Houston. And I found the power of photography and the power of visual arts had the ability for me to tell the story that I wanted to tell in a more powerful way than words did for me. And so I did what 22-year-olds do, and I ran off to IAIA. One of the reasons that I came here was because IAIA offered me a scholarship, and I couldn't afford to go to school for photography at the time. I wanted to go to the University of Arizona, Walter Cronkite School of Journalism. But I moved to Santa Fe sight unseen, and I was one of the first classes of the brand new campus. The brand new campus at that time was just the studios over there. The Balzer Gallery was the library. We had one set of dorms and just about 10 studios, and that was it. We quickly became family, and I worked in the same dark room that the students work in today to begin to learn my craft of photography. I wanted to show some early work because we'll move on to some of the more advanced stuff, but I really wanted to show that we all start somewhere. This was a large format assignment in the studio over there at IAIA, probably in the year 2000. I can remember it very clearly working with Eugene Cody from Chemehuevi Hopi, and we were learning to manipulate the big cameras and develop our own film and make our first prints in that dark room. It was pre-digital. We took a lot of photographs from back home. We took a lot of photographs on film, and during this time, it was really about finding our voice. This time at IAIA is about finding your voice, about experimenting with different artistic mediums, about getting to know each other and our many, many stories and our diversity from all over Turtle Island so that you can find grounding in your own identity and voice, and may that come through your art practice, your work, your writing, your curation, your museum studies, your indigenous liberal studies. All of that is tied to your very own unique Indian identity. I continued on in black and white film until I graduated, and there was a great schism in photography because by that time, digital had emerged, and if you were doing fine artwork, you stayed in film, and if you were going digital, it was all about commercial work. I had created a portfolio by 2003, and the work I thought was interesting, but Native photography had really been defined from outside of our own culture and more by people like Edward Curtis, people that were doing photo documentary, ethnographic work. And so I was making work that I think emulated some of that a little bit. I would ask my friends and my family to put on their regalia, and we would go out in a landscape that had no context of modernity, and we would take photographs. And I think that that was because of what was out there with photography, and I hadn't quite found my own voice yet. I laugh about it a little bit now because I think that's so funny we don't even do that, right? We don't ask each other to put on regalia and go stand out in the field. It had been internalized that this is what our art was supposed to be from outside of our own culture. And it took me many years to kind of break free from the black and white sepia-toned work that defined what Native American photography was. But when I did find my voice, it sang. It sang to the community sense of humor. It was use of color. It was intertribal. It was contemporary. It was really turning the lens from people outside of the culture, saying, this is what I find interesting about your culture, and instead really placing us in contemporary context where we could say, you know what, we're here in dominant culture, we're fully as indigenous as we ever were, and we understand biblical stories and Western art. And so really the camera began to turn for me. It began to turn to be in service to my own community, to find that sense of humor and to be able to create representation in a way that I had never seen. And it was really well received in our community because it was how we wanted to be seen in many ways. This piece is called TV Indians and was really a counter narrative to how we are portrayed in Hollywood. I began to create very staged and theatrical pieces, blending my work on film here at IAIA, and went on to pursue another vocational degree in photography technology and all of that digital stuff that wasn't available yet at Oklahoma State University. My first husband was Muskogee Creek. I like to mention that because that is another beautiful thing about going to tribal college, is that it takes us away from being in our isolated communities and puts us back together. And we find friends, and we find like minds, and many of us find love. The work went on to continue to be contemporary. I got a little more vulnerable and a little more true to my California identity, and the more vulnerable I became, the more well-received the artwork was to my contemporaries and to my community. I make my artwork for you. I make it first for Native audience because I think that there's a nuance to people looking at the artwork and knowing that it was made by a Native person. I think photography has many times been weaponized and used against us. It's been extractive, it's been exploitive. But the power of indigenizing our various mediums and learning the power of visual communication in art really is a healing process. It's not only healing for ourselves, but healing for our communities. It's healing in a way of creating representation for ourselves that our younger generation can see and that we can even heal from at our age. So referencing us in pop culture became very important because it took us out of the historic context that I was trying to counter and screaming, we're here and we're modern. And I began to find a deep connection with the use of color, of pop cultural reference that really pulled my work out of the past and into the present. I think all of us as Indigenous peoples are deeply tied to the land, inseparable from the landscapes where our bones come from. And here we are at IAIA in the beautiful sacred lands of the Pueblo people, one of the most beautiful places I've ever been to in my life. I still make it home about 4 or 5 times a year because that's where I find renewal. It renews and re-energizes. It's our source for many of us, where our bones come from. So I make work that also honors that connection to land, to the Colorado River, to the lake where I'm from, and to that res life, right? That sense of humor, giving back to our community, no matter where we're at. I do make it home and talk about stories of how our bodies came from great ocean women and how we still, as women and people, are inseparable from our landscapes. I like to tell stories for future generations to be inspired to continue to learn culture, to learn bird songs in California, and to create pride and visual awareness for Southern California tribes. Sometimes we're a little bit lesser known than some of the other tribes, and so it's important for me to do work back home. As I continue to learn, I also continue to involve my academic learning and those Indigenous liberal studies and all the things that we learn in our art. And that's one of the other things that is this great accessibility that we have at IAIA to people that can articulate so well about the difficult subjects, about the common struggles that we have, because Standing Rock is everywhere, right? Every single one of our Indigenous nations is struggling against environmental impacts, against colonization of our lands, of our people. And so it's important for us to learn how to talk about all of those things, and if you're not a writer, to make art about them, to make art about how the dams affected our people and flooded them out, about how climate change is causing flooding in places where it never did, and for us to tell stories about how we ended up on big chunks of clay and they found oil. Because without these stories, a lot of people wonder, how did we get to where we're at? And sometimes we even wonder ourselves, how did we get here? And so that's part of the community that IAIA brings, is this ability to share ideas, to learn from people that can articulate about different subjects, and to make art that is about what it feels like when your landscapes are destroyed for energy, when resources are extracted, when border walls are put up on your ancestral homelands, and how our spirits are still out in our sacred areas protecting all things and experiencing all of the love and the loss that we're experiencing. I continue to make work back home this last year. I continue to apply for grants. I am at a point now where I hope that my work is in service to community. I hope that by reaching a level of high craft that I can continue to give back and tell stories in metropolitan areas about how big industrial cities are still holy places, about why indigenous lands were stolen in the name of gold and oil to create cities like Los Angeles and San Francisco, and how the tribes there in California were never federally recognized but have a lot of culture and keep a lot of culture despite. One of the things that became very important to me as a woman artist emerging from IAIA was to decolonize our self-image through matriarchy. Being from a woman-led tribe, being from strong matriarchy, I felt that our imagery was dominated not only from outside of the culture, but by men. And I think it's a really subtle but really powerful shift to have a woman behind the camera. That it comes from a very maternal place of being able to show the life-giving strength of women, of how medicine and mythos have been passed down to us through thousands of years through deities like Clay Woman, of life-giving energies, of command and control of our bodies. So I urge you in this community as well, because we have experienced a lot of pain and a lot of assault. We are still experiencing an epidemic of missing and murdered Indigenous women, to set the intention and commitment of protecting our women, Two-Spirit, and trans community here at IAIA always, and hold them up and make sure that they're safe and speak up when you're not sure. This series is called First American Girls and continues to go on about celebrating the diversity of our many tribes, of our many different types of regalia that hail from each of our bioregions, to blend that use of both traditional photography and high fashion commercial work to elevate the status of our own fashion and makers of things, and the intergenerational love that goes into our regalia making, and how these things exist against all odds, and how each of our tribal vernaculars are so different from each other, but how we can celebrate them. And finally, I wanted to talk about a more recent body of work, because I talked about how I kind of pulled out of the past and into the present, and now I see the young people here at IAIA healed. I see a different student coming in and returning to IAIA that are less hurt than the generations 20 years ago and 30 years ago, and I just want to celebrate that with you. You know, that we're continuing to heal from drugs, from alcohol, from intergenerational trauma, that we're continuing to have more agency over our lands, over our lives, over our voices. We continue to decolonize our imagery and how we show up in the world. And so now, for the first time, we're watching the genre of Indigenous futurism emerge, and that comes from a place of health and wellness. That for the first time, maybe we're not just surviving the apocalypse, but that we're actually able to imagine our cultures and our people and speculate that the world is going to need the knowledge of Indigenous peoples in the future in order to survive. That each one of you holds a very sacred role in the health of planet and people in order for the world to survive. That the world is going to need the leadership of you and of all Indigenous peoples to get back to place-based ways and to understand where everything went wrong through colonization. they're going to have to go back to the old ways. They're going to have to plug into the hearts and the minds and the life-giving power of Indigenous women, of traditional ecological knowledge and science in order to go forward. And finally, I wanted to share this one, which was also a fun idea of how when we imagine ourselves in the future, from outside of the culture, people are often imagining just advancement in technology. But when I imagine the future, I imagine that we take the oldest things with us, like our white corn and the corns that we grow in our backyards. So this one was made, I was incredibly honored to be asked, Dr. Martin and by Patsy Phillips and the committee that asked me to take a photograph of alumni from every generation and from every single department of the Institute of American Indian Arts. I think it took us 4 months to take this photograph, and it's inspiring. You know, IAIA is really much bigger than any of the one or many people in this photograph. IAIA is really an idea. It's more than an institution, it's more than a person, it's really a spirit. It's a spirit of all the people that came before us and all of the ideas that have emerged and all of the incredible artworks and all of the history that has been made here. And I urge you to remember that you're a part of that you have become part of a family that will always take care of you and that asks that you take care of it. The Institute of American Indian Arts, in my experience, gives as much back to each one of you as you choose to give to it. So it's really like a big blank canvas when you arrive, and you really will hear many of us say that this place changed our life. We're all very involved after graduation in this place, and it's not only an investment in that spirit and that idea, but it's also an investment in each one of you, because we care. We care that you find your voice and that you find your identity and that you become strong and that you give back to this community and care for the next generation that comes after you. I wanted to share one quote from Ira Glass for those of you that are starting out, and I hope by showing some of my earlier work to where it came, it inspires you to stick with it. Because we don't all come out with the talent. You have to hone your craft, whether it's in writing or museum studies or photography or painting or clay making or regalia making. The beautiful thing about art is that it also doesn't ask anything from you. It's there to be your friend, and like everything, in order to get better and better, you have to practice. Nobody tells this to people who are beginners. I wish somebody had told me. All of us who do creative work, we get into it because we have good taste, but there is this gap. For the first couple of years you make stuff, it's just not that good. It's trying to be good. It has potential, but it's not. But your taste, the thing that got you into this game, it's still killer. And your taste is why your work disappoints you. A lot of people never get past this phase. They quit. Most people I know who do interesting creative work went through years of this. We know our work doesn't have this special thing that we want it to have. We all go through this. And if you're just starting out and you're still in this phase, you gotta know it's normal. And the most important thing you can do is a lot of work. Put yourself on a deadline so that every week you finish one story. It's only going through a volume of work that you will close that gap, and your work will be as good as your ambitions. And I took longer to figure out how to do this than anyone I've ever met. It's gonna take a while. It's normal to take a while. You just gotta fight your way through. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Cara. You honored us with your presence and especially your inspirational message. your words of wisdom and your experience to share it with our students, faculty, and staff. It's a real pleasure and an honor for us. And so David Sarah's going to help me. We have Betty Buffalo design. He was here in the 60s, a blanket, and has our IAIA logo on it. And we wanted to present that to you as just a small token of our appreciation for being with us today. We know how busy you are. Thank you. Now, I would also like to ask the new faculty and staff to please come forward. If you've joined the IAIA community and family since June, or May, excuse me, please come down and join us. And if you're in a new position since May, please come down. You can line up next to the microphone. We're going to start in a minute. While you're coming down, I'm going to introduce members of the President's Cabinet. Felipe Colon, Dean of the College. Felipe. Larry Mirabal, Vice President for Operations. Larry, thank you. Nena Martinez Anaya, Dean of Students. Lori Logan Brayshaw, Director of Sponsored Programs. Mary Beth Worley, Director of Institutional Research. Jason Ordaz, our Communications Director. He's always working at these events. So. Suzette Sherman, Director of Institutional Advancement. Suzette, thank you. And Renee White, my Executive Assistant. Thank you, Renee. Yeah, and of course, I encourage all the students, faculty, and staff that whenever you have an opportunity, stop by the office. And Renee is the one that keeps me on schedule, and so she knows my calendar, and she'll be glad to schedule a meeting, and I'll look forward to meeting with you. But let's start now by asking, Ryan's going to start. He's never shy. Please go to the microphone, introduce yourself, your position, and whatever else you'd like to share with us.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ryan Young. I'm Lacta Flambo Ojibwe. I use they, them pronouns, and I'm one of the Student Success Advisors here.
Welcome, Ryan.
Hi, I'm Karen Redeye. I'm Seneca, originally from Western New York. I'm a Student Success Advisor and amateur kickball player.
Welcome, Karen.
Guatsi Hopa, I'm Shauna Victorino. I'm from the pueblos of Gashja and Ago. I am IAIA staff accountant, and I've been with IAIA for 12 years, and I enjoy my job.
Thank you,
Drop
Shauna.
by Scal Hopa.
Hi, I am Torres Tebane. This year I got a new position, Facilities Administrative Assistant and Custodian Supervisor. And I want to thank Dr. Martin, Mr. Mirabal, Elizabeth, Henry for the new opportunity.
Thank you, Dora. Welcome.
Hello, I'm Patty Armstrong, and I am the new manager of the Continuing Education Program. As of the beginning of June, some of you folks may know me from working at Santa Fe Community College and Career Services for many years, but I migrated to from Minnesota, yeah, sure you betcha, 17 years ago, and Santa Fe is definitely my home.
Welcome, Patty.
Hello, my name is Erica Knecht. I came to the Institute of American Indian Arts as an international exchange student from Germany, and now I work as a curatorial assistant at MOCNA. We have an open door policy and always happy to welcome any of you down there, so make sure to say hi if you're in downtown.
Welcome, Erica.
Hello, everyone. My name is Serena Rodriguez. I am the visiting faculty for the Creative Writing Department this year. Some of you may know me from the Learning Lab. I was there for 2 years, and I also recently graduated from IAIA's MFA program back in May. So, thank you.
Well, congratulations. Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Melina Petrowski. I work for the dual credit program. My great-grandfather was a member of the Mescalero Apache tribe, and today's my birthday.
Oh. Happy birthday, Elena. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Rosemary Katropia. I started here in 2011 as a student in the Museum Studies program. I was graduated in 2014, and as of Monday, I am the new assistant archivist working under Ryan.
Welcome, Rosemary.
Good morning. I'm Danielle Merzinski-Obiakwe. I use she, her pronouns. I'm from the Chickasaw Nation, and I am the Alumni and Donor Relations Manager.
Welcome, Danielle.
Goatsi hopa, tushino mekwiti aita ersesh yaka kuchinish hano ako mersata. My name is Larissa Garcia. I'm from Acoma Pueblo, New Mexico, and I'm the new Career and Internship Director.
Welcome, Lorenzo.
Hello, everyone. My name is José Luis Román. I came from Spain, from Madrid exactly, and the new collection conservation project manager. And I want to say thank you for letting me be part of this wonderful institution.
Thank you. Welcome. What up?
Hi, I'm Hannah Yetwin. I'm the new metadata specialist with the Research Center for Contemporary Native Art.
Welcome, Tanya.
Hello, I'm Stephanie Wilson. I'm the Advancement Associate, and I just want to welcome all the new students and returning students back to campus.
Welcome, Stephanie. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Alex Mauricio. I am an alumni originally from Honolulu, Hawaii, and I am a new facilities hire. So I help to prep all the events here, chairs, flooring, tables, and much more, and I hope to continue to service you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Shoshana Vegainer. I'm the Instruction and Reference Librarian, and I'm not new. But our library director, Sarah Quimby, is out today, so in her stead, I am going to introduce our new Sunday librarian. Her name is Margot Agustina. She's not here because she works on Sundays, but she's a very experienced librarian, and she cannot wait to meet all of you.
Good. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Dr. Laura Evans, Cherokee, Director of the Research Center for Contemporary Native Arts. I am not new. I'm here. Pretend I am Dana Warren, a very esteemed curator and arts program manager who moved to Santa Fe from Canada. She is a Montana Accomack Cree Nation, and she's running the Artist in Residence program. So I hope you'll say hello to her, and the first artists arrive next week.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Evans.
Hello, I'm Mary Bordeaux. I'm Sichangu Lakota, and I'm, what am I? I'm assistant professor in museum studies, a new full-time faculty.
Welcome, Mary.
I'm not new either, but I do want to welcome my coordinator for the MFA in Cultural Administration, Diné Velarde, who is Hickory Apache and was pulled away for ceremony.
Thank you, Dr. Ryker-Crawford. Let's give all of our new faculty, staff, and everybody a round of applause. Wado, thank you.
Okay, great. Let's have another round of applause for Dr. Martin. Yeah. And for Cara Romero. This was great. All right, everyone. So I'd like to invite all of you to have lunch on the dance circle. Please allow the elders in our audience to proceed to the front of the food line. And then that concludes the convocation. Thank you all for coming. Thank you.
We'll walk over in bed. I'm going to get some photos with you and Beverly. Thank you. Good job.
It's a sick bag. It's a picture. It's amazing.
It's a wonderful presentation. Okay,
You know we have that recorded, live stream.
No pressure there. I try not to ask anymore because somehow that makes me nervous. So if I don't know, then I
It was wonderful.
pretend like it's okay, good. I'm glad.
Oh my God. And it's nice to have the photographic essay to go with the words.
Oh yeah, it's easy to lean on my photographs during a lecture.
know that someone brought your making history photo.
I did.
And is giving it back to the students.
Yes, I did.
So the students can enjoy.
You'll be in it
Anyway,
too.
Thank you. Okay.
Would you mind taking a photo?
You're gonna get a
And I'll
snap.
take one.
Okay. Should we put you in the middle?
Thank you.
Thank
Felipe
you.
wants a photo too.
Yeah, please.
Oh yeah.
I was going to speak with you too. You probably know we have a symposium coming up. We're going to pull together some alum to talk about their experiences. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'll send you an email. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Oh, mask. Thanks. Thank you so much. But yeah, we'll be in touch here shortly. It's going to be October 17th. So,
Okay. I think I'm in town then.
okay,
Yeah.
sounds great.
Sounds
Thank you
good.
so much.
And I